Hello and welcome to The Others 2001. Now, the main personality of this movie is Grace, who is Nicole Kidman. Of course, I don't need to introduce her, a top-tier actress. But also we have very able child actors and actresses that work along her and have an amazing performance. Anyway, we start off by a massive scream from Grace. She wakes up from a terrible nightmare, and of course we're not privy to what is going on in her mind and what the content of the nightmare was. But eventually she does wake up and she comes downstairs. There's a knock at the door and she lets in 3 people. So we soon learn that she is looking for replacements for her previous housekeepers because they suddenly left her. And she has given a notice in the local newspaper for honest and hardworking people. And of course, I think she assumes that these 3 attendees or those who have read this and responded to that particular ad. Now, she shows them around the house and sets some ground rules. So, for instance, she says that no door is to be opened before the previous one is closed and locked. And there's 2 sets of keys. One is in her charge and one will be given to Mrs. Mills. The 3 personalities that come in the door are Mrs. Mills, who seems to be the head of the group. There is Mr. Tuttle, you can see in the screen, and also Lydia. Lydia is mute, and she can hear and she can't speak. Now, from there, after setting the ground rules, she talks to them a little bit more about what each of them do. So Mrs. Mills reveals that she used to work here, that actually all of them used to work here. So that comes as a bit of a surprise. But she used to organize the housework before. And then what else? So Lydia was able to cook and clean, and also Mr. Tuttle is the gardener. So again, they fit her requirements very well, because she needs someone to take care of the kids, someone to wash and clean, and a gardener. Now, she does tell her, Mrs. Mills does tell Grace that there's no need for her to show her around the house because they used to work here many years ago. But the point is that they never reveal when this was. Was it recent? And we also don't know when the family bought the property, maybe in the past 10 years. So this timing and timeframes are not discussed at all. Another thing that Grace says is that they need to shut the doors before they open a new one, and also they need to keep the curtains shut all the time. Now, the group are a little bit puzzled about why this is the case, but then they introduce to the children. They're taken upstairs to meet the children. The children are Nicholas and Anne. And the mum reveals that the reason they have to keep everywhere so dark is that Nicholas and Anne are photosensitive. They're photosensitive and they can't be exposed to light any stronger than a candlelight. Now, it seems that they get along okay, and the group are employed. And they go downstairs to make breakfast for the children, and the children are a little bit reluctant, and the attitude is a little bit off. And for instance, Anne says, "Will you leave us as well, like the previous caretakers and sort of the help?" And Mrs. Mills says, "No, I'm not going to leave you." And Anne says, "Well, the previous people said they wouldn't leave us, but then it happened." So again, we get exposed to, or we learn about something that happened in this house, but really we don't get a huge amount of detail about it. The children imply and insinuate that something went wrong. The mom went mad one day, and the same sort of time the help or the help in the house left as well. So at this point, Grace comes in, and she wants to speak to Mrs. Mills about something, and they talk about something that puzzles Grace is that she posted the ad a few days ago, but then she checked the post box and the postman hadn't been there, so the note was never published. So she's puzzled about why these three people showed up when nothing was advertised. How did they know to be there? And of course, Mrs. Mills at this point reveals that because they used to work here, they know the house very well, and that they thought that in such a big house, there should always be need for extra help and care, and housekeepers and so on, gardeners and you name it. And this seems to be convincing for Grace, and we move on from there. In the next scene, we have Grace homeschool her two children, Nicholas and Anne. They're reading a lesson about a family, and this is fine. It's not a religious content. It's a story about justice and pastor. So these were two children who stated that they believed in Christ, and they got killed for it. And then the two kids find this quite entertaining because, especially Anne, because apparently she thinks that they could have lied about it and they wouldn't get killed. But then Grace points out that there's a caveat to that. They would have stayed alive, but they would go to hell for lying. And then she takes them through the whole process of talking about different types of hell and so on. So it seems she's very religious and quite fanatic, believes in what she has learned or been indoctrinated by, and wants to transfer that to her children. We're not judging, but it is what it is. And then the children want to play, and the mom says that no, you can't play. You need to learn the lesson by heart, and asks Anne to leave. Or actually, she asks her to leave, and Anne says, "I can't leave because the curtains in the other room need to be shut." And it seems that the whole process from the daily activities or just so prolonged and difficult in this house. Just leaving a room to another has so many rules and things that you have to consider all the time. So Anne is taken to the music room, the piano room, and she's sitting there on the floor, as you can see, whereas Nicholas stays behind in whatever room they were in. It was probably the library. Everything is okay until Grace hears a child crying. And then she comes to investigate, and she goes up to the library, and Nicholas is okay, he's not crying. And then she goes down to the piano room and asks Anne why she was crying. And Anne says, I wasn't crying, I was reading. And this is fine, but then Anne says Victor was crying. He was thumping away on the piano, and I told him you're not allowed to do that, but he did it nonetheless. And so it seems that Anne actually claims to have a conversation with people who are present in this house, but of course, children tell a lot of tales and fibs, and Grace doesn't want to, of course, believe it. And there is this rivalry and to some extent, animosity between the mother and daughter. And also Grace has a tendency to fly off the handle, and she realizes that one of the doors to the piano room was open, and calls in the servants, and they help to justify why the door was open. And of course, she realizes that they haven't touched the door because Lydia didn't have a key and Mrs. Mills was somewhere else all the time. And after that, we then go to the dinner table later that day, and the children again were talking about ghosts. So Anna is a bit naughty. She scares her brother all the time, tells him about ghosts, that they wear white sheets and clinging chains and so on. And he's younger and more vulnerable and sensitive to these kind of things, and he's afraid. Then I think that night or some other time, we are in the children's bedroom, and we hear a conversation between another child, because there's only two people that we can see. There's Anne and Nicholas in the bedroom, and there isn't any. Supposedly, the two of them are alone. But then we hear the voice of another child, and this really scares Nicholas. He's looking the other way, and he's terrified. But then Anne says, she has an argument with Victor, the little boy that we also learned about in the video in the piano room. I think the most horrifying scene comes up in a second, in which, so you see this little hand that touches Nicholas's face, but then we don't know if it's Anne acting up and trying to frighten her little brother, or indeed if it's the hand of Victor, and you can't really see whose hand it is. And this sends little Nicholas into panic mode, and he starts screaming his lungs out. And of course, Mum comes to the rescue. And Anne tells her there was someone else in this room, and the mum, of course, doesn't believe her. And Anne is then punished. So she is meant to read the punishment was a strange one, because somehow the punishment was to read passages of the Bible. And Mrs. Mills tries to intervene and say, she's done enough reading. Is there any chance that she can be forgiven? And the mum says, well, she's lied and she doesn't want to ask for forgiveness. So there is that. And also the mum is sitting in some room, and she's doing her embroidery, and she hears some thumping and movements upstairs, and she goes to investigate. She's like this eagle who's ready to pounce and attack people all the time, accuse them of things. And she's not very open-minded. Then she realizes this is not Lydia. So Lydia has been always, during this thumping and all that, she's been in the garden. So you can't blame it on her. And she goes up to the room and tries to investigate what the source of commotion and movement is. Now Anne has seen this, and she said people were going upstairs into that junk room there. Now, Grace goes into the junk room, and I think this is maybe one of the scariest points of the movie, in which she can definitely hear chatter and think that she can actually hear people saying she's watching. So someone or some people are referring to Grace, but she can't see anything. And what makes this scene a lot scarier is everything is covered in white sheets, and you hear these sounds of voices of people. And anyway, this scene dissipates, and then again she bumps into Anne, and Anne shows her a picture that she's drawn of this family that supposedly lives with them here in the same house, and the numbers refer to how many times she's seen them or chatted with them or interacted with them. There's an old woman that Anne has interacted with or seen 14 times. So this is enough to send Grace into frenzy as well. She takes out a rifle, gets Mr. Tuttle in, and she asks him to help her look through every nook and cranny in this house. And while this is happening, the children are with Mrs. Mills in the kitchen, or maybe a common room, and a common room, and they're just playing in, and so on. Now, also later we're introduced to this random book that Grace finds in the house and asks Mrs. Mills, because she knows that Mrs. Mills has lived in this house before. Again, she's never that curious to know the time frame, was it 20 years ago, was it 30 years ago, and so on. She never asked. But they come across these really random and disturbing looking albums. And these are albums of the dead. Mrs. Mills says that there's still photos of people who used to live in that house, or relatives, and once they died, very superstitious families used to keep a picture of the dead, and dead as in when they were dead, not when they were alive, with shut eyes. And it was very disturbing, but this way they thought that they could keep their memory alive. And Grace asks them to be burnt or discarded. She doesn't want them around the house. And later we have a conversation between Mrs. Mills and Grace about her time in the house. Again, the time frame is never asked, but she does ask her about like your employers and did they treat you well and why did you leave, and then one clue that Mrs. Mills gives, but again no time or date is confirmed, is that there was a bout of tuberculosis and a lot of people were killed, and the place was evacuated. So if Grace wanted, she could go and investigate this. Now, and she could maybe look in previous newspaper clippings of when this bout of tuberculosis hit this area. It wouldn't, even without the internet, you can find these kind of things. Then there's a moment of guilt for Grace. She comes and talks to the children. Nicholas is awake, but Anne isn't, and she asks for forgiveness for being so hard on her, because again she does sense these beings in the house, but she can't explain it. And because she's such a devout Christian, she doesn't believe that the dead and alive can meet, but they only meet in eternity. So she doesn't believe this could happen, and there's no way she would agree with this or accept it. Anyway, one night when she's going to bed, she hears or it might have been the same night, she hears someone playing the piano very well. It's like a professional piano player. She goes down and she examines the door and realizes that door was closing on its own, for instance, and she starts screaming. But of course, no one was there, and she starts screaming, and Mrs. Mills comes down, and she tries to calm her down and gives her some medicine. And again, it's not only everyone in the house that senses these entities or intruders, whatever you like to call them, but actually everyone else, but also Grace, like she sensed them in the junk room and now in the piano room, but she can't explain it. And then Mrs. Mills asks her to be a little bit more open-minded. Sometimes, like consider sometimes that the the world of the living and the dead might coincide, and then again, because Grace is referring to the Bible and her Christian beliefs, she doesn't believe this is possible, but the Lord wouldn't allow it. Now, then, this is enough to really get Grace fly off the handle again, and she wants to walk into town to get the priest. So I think they must be Catholic. And she leaves the house, but it's very foggy. And then we hear a conversation between Mr. Tuttle and Mrs. Mills, and they say, should we stop her going? And then Mr. Tuttle says, well, no, because she's not going to get very far. And it seems that they know about something. They know about something that everyone else tries to ignore or doesn't accept. Anyway, from there, then we see Grace walk into this very dense fog, and she can't see anywhere. She can't get very far, as Mrs. Mills rightfully stated. She's walking in various directions and looks very nervous. But then in the fog, she sees the outline of a man, and who could it be but her husband? I did mention the husband went off to war, and they had no news of him for a year and a half, and they told her that they should, or she should give him up for dead. But then meeting the husband like this was something that she couldn't have wished for in her wildest dreams. It's her absolute dream come true. Now, they come back to the house, but just to point out that his whole demeanor is off, and he says very random things like, I lost my home, sometimes I bleed, like things that are very random. Why would he say that? His whole vibe is very off. They come home, and he meets Mrs. Mills, and Mrs. Mills gets a bath running for him, and also he needs some food, and he has to rest. So that's him resting in his house. He does also meet the children, who are ecstatic to see him. Then again, things are really bad between Anne and Grace, and they always argue, and Anne is sent off. And it's mainly about the conversation about the intruders. So again, Grace was losing her mind because she did have 2 serious encounters with these intruders. And everyone thought, okay, we've had a breakthrough, because Grace is now able to accept that there's some entity or entities in the house, or intruders. But then when the husband came back, she went back to factory settings. Basically, she denied the whole thing. And this kicks off this argument, and Anne is furious about it. And Mrs. Mills talks to her and says, your mom doesn't want to accept that certain things are happening. Then we get to a scene in which another horrible commotion and fight breaks out between the mom and daughter. The mom has made christening, well, not christening, but it's her confirmation dress. So again, they are Catholic. So she fits it on, and it looks okay. And she asks her mom if she can just have it on for a few minutes, and the mom says it's okay. Now, then later we see that, she comes back in the room and asks Anne to take the dress off because she'll dirty it. And here is one of the most disturbing scenes of the movie. We see this being, so supposedly it is Anne, but maybe not, because if you look at, so there's a puppet, but also the hand looks like the hand of an old woman as opposed to Anne. So then a fight breaks out between them, and but then everything flips back to normal, and she realizes that she's pushing and shoving Anne as opposed to the old woman who she supposedly saw. Now, Mrs. Mills is there to console them and split them, take them into different rooms. So Anne is taken to her dad, and she talks about what happened, and Grace is taken to the kitchen. And again, she says, I don't know what got over me. I saw the hands of an old woman, and she just can't explain it, because she on multiple occasions is encountering these beings, intruders, but she doesn't, the breakthrough doesn't happen for her to, finally give in and say, okay, they are here. Then we go back to the bedroom of the mom and dad, and the mom and dad talk about things. So, for instance, the mom says that, so the dad says, I talked to Anne and she told me everything about what happened. But again, that's something that has happened that we're not privy to. We only hear little bits about it, so we're tortured about what is this thing that happened. And then Grace says, I love my kids. I would never harm them, never hurt them. I would die first before I would harm them. And yes, and then things get more personal, because she says that, I stayed here, you went off to war, and I'm in this darkness day and night, day in, day out, and then she says, well, the war was an excuse, you just wanted to leave me. And then, of course, so that's where she has a fit, really, and she says that I wasn't good enough for you, or I wasn't enough for you. Anyway, the dad tries to console her, and the next morning she wakes up to realize that the husband has left. Now, we come to the beginning of the end of the movie, really. She hears screams from inside and rushes in to find the children screaming, and then she realizes that all the curtains have been removed. So she covers them with something and takes them into a room to hide them from the light. Yeah, so that's there. And then she realizes that the curtains are gone there as well. And Anne asks her to find the curtains. Now, she does ask them to find ask the workers or the servants to help her, but they have a very casual attitude of, okay, the children used to be photosensitive. Maybe they're not photosensitive anymore. Like, have you tested it ever? And this just aggravates. She just aggravates Grace when she says, "Are you crazy? I told you the children were photosensitive and the light will kill them." So this just pisses her off more and more until she asks them to leave. Like, initially she had asked them to help her, but then they realize that she realizes that their whole attitude is very off, and asks them to leave immediately. And they do, and they forfeit the keys, hand over the keys, and they leave. Now, while all this is happening, then the children are in the room, and they can hear the mom pulling things out and emptying out all the cupboards in a frenzy mode to find the curtains, but the curtains are not to be found. Now, while this is happening, the children leave the house, and of course it's dark, so it's fine. And they wander around the gardens, and then they two things happen simultaneously. In the frenzy of Grace, the frenzy search of the house, she comes across a picture on the floor. So the picture, what could it be but the picture of the three maids in one of those death pictures, effectively. Simultaneously, Anne and Nicholas are there and in the gardens, and they come across a few graves. So at the same time that Grace sees the picture of December 1891 and the 3 housekeepers that have died, at the same time we also have Anne read the names on the gravestones, which matches the 3 housekeepers. So indeed, they are dead. And with even higher levels of frenzy and madness, she runs into the garden because she hears the screams of the children and asks them to go in and hide. And she points the gun at the 3 servants that now has been completely revealed that they're dead, because the children have seen their gravestones and Grace has seen their dead photos. Then she tries to shoot them, but then Mrs. Mills says that don't bother yourself and waste your bullets, because tuberculosis, as you know, killed us about half a century ago, so there's no point trying to aim at us. We're dead. Then Grace just throws the gun and then goes into the house and finds the children and then asks them to go upstairs and hide. Now they go upstairs and hide, and while this is happening, Grace also has a conversation again with the 3 servants, and they say, where she says, just leave us alone. And then Mrs. Mills says, well, if we leave you alone, do you think the intruders will? And then Grace again goes into denial mode and says, the intruders are not there. There's no intruders. And then Mrs. Mills says, yes, they are. They're now with the children. They've discovered them. And at the same time, we get a scream from Anne. Supposedly, they have been discovered. Now, Grace goes upstairs with her clenching to her rosary beads and praying, because, of course, she's scared out of her wits and scared out of her mind. She goes in, and what do they see? What does she see? She sees the seance. 3 people, including this woman, who are at the seance table, and the children are there. They have been discovered by the seance team, and they are talking to this woman who seems to be a medium. She talks to them, and then she scribbles something, and there's some man who interprets it or reads it. And the old woman asks Anne, children, why do you remain in this house? What happened in this room? She first asks. And what did your mom do to you? And then Anne whispers something in her ear, and the woman transcribes it as a pillow. And the man who's there says something about a pillow. And immediately the medium says, is that how your mother killed you? And finally now the penny drops and the whole dilemma now eventually comes to an end, suddenly comes to an end. Anne, Nicholas, and the mother realize that they're all dead. And in fact, these guys at the seance table are alive. And you can see what the mom does in denial. Of course, she doesn't believe that she's dead. And the people that we call intruders are actually alive. They're the actual they're the actual residents of the house. And all along, the 3 servants and Nicholas, Anne, and Grace have been dead. So then the family leave, and Grace, Anne, and Nicholas are there. They talk about, well, first of all, of course, they're in a lot of shock, and it takes them a few minutes maybe to digest what happened. And Anne asks her mum, if we're dead, then where is limbo? So early in the movie, Grace got them to talk about the different types of hell. So they knew where limbo was. But then apparently the dead and the living are not meant to meet until eternity. So supposedly people go to limbo, and Grace says, I don't know. I am no more knowledgeable than you are. And in this midst, then we have more secrets getting revealed. So Mrs. Mills tells them that, this is exactly the question that that Lydia asks when she found out. She was the person who found out the three of them were dead. She asked, if we're dead, then where's Limbo? Where are we? And more importantly. And that's the time she went deaf, when she went dumb. I don't think she was deaf, but she stopped talking at some point because she could hear. And anyway, Mrs. Mills now takes care of the situation. She tells them, I'm going to make a cup of tea for them. And she says, this is always how it has been. We live as the dead and they live as the living, but sometimes our worlds, they clash sometimes, and sometimes we sense them, sometimes we don't sense them. And this is how it has always been. And this was a remarkable movie because, with a very, genius twist of the plot. So normally, the plot is that you have living people who sense paranormal activities, and they sense like ghosts and stuff. But all along, our protagonists were dead. They were the ghosts, and what they perceived to be intruders were living people. So I thought that was brilliantly written, very amazing acting from all the actors, and also brilliant screening and cinematography. Bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Well, I hope you liked it. Thank you.